Example that everybody that was your friend cannot always remain your friend.
Police say the victims and suspects in each of the 4 cases knew each other, and 3 of them were domestic related.
It's heartbreaking because it means that people could have walked away. People could have decided to turn the other cheek or decided to back down, so to speak.
"19-years-old, new mother, stabbed to death over a birthday party she didn't attend." Sometimes the most dangerous person in your life ain't some stranger. It's somebody you just started calling a friend. This is what went down in Montgomery, Alabama. And trust me, this one hits different. That weekend, 5 lives got cut short in that city. When Mayor Stephen Reed and Police Chief Grayboy stepped up to address what happened, they kept it real with everybody. They made it clear none of these was random violence. These was situations where people already knew each other, folks who let their problems get out of hand instead of finding better ways to handle conflict. These tragedies are unique to the people involved in them, they said. But one family got hit harder than most. Among those killed that weekend was a 19-year-old woman named Amari Kapleton. This girl had everything still ahead of her. Feel me? Barely out of high school, still in her teenage years, and already fully committed to being a mama to her baby boy. But check this. This wasn't no random attack from some stranger. According to police, the person accused is 20-year-old Derekana Dunklin, someone who Amari had gotten close to. What began as a real friendship, one that seemed built on solid ground and shared experiences, collapsed into toxicity in just a matter of months. Envy and resentment replaced everything good. Word from people who knew both of them is that things started falling apart when Amari didn't pull up to a birthday party and said no to a trip out to Huntsville. Small things, you understand? The kind of petty stuff most folks forget about in a few days. But somehow it festered and grew into something way darker. Then when September 21st came around in those early morning hours, Derekana allegedly showed up at a house on Raintree Drive, and she wasn't alone. She was holding a knife, and if you look at what the court paperwork says, she had every intention of using it. By the time that night ended, Amari Kapleton was bleeding out from multiple stab wounds, and another young woman was being rushed to get medical help. This is the kind of story that rocks an entire neighborhood, a child left without his mother, a family torn apart, and what used to be a promising friendship ending in pure violence. And it forces us to look at something we don't like to admit. Sometimes the biggest betrayals don't come from people we never met, they come from the ones we trusted. If you're into authentic true crime stories, the kind that go deep into the real facts and the real people involved, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We put out fresh content every single day, so there's always another case to dive into, another truth waiting to be uncovered. If we really want to understand how devastating this tragedy is, we need to step back and look at who Amari Kapleton was before everything changed that September night. Not too long before all this happened, she had her graduation moment with the class of 2024, holding that diploma, her future wide open, all possibilities still on the table. For most young people, graduating high school means the start of real freedom, time to go places, party hard, figure out who you really are without rules holding you back. But Amari's journey took a different turn. Just months before walking out of high school for good, she welcomed her son Kyrie. Everyone knew him as Kai. In that instant, her whole world shifted. While others in her graduating class was deciding what to wear to the next function, Amari was making decisions about diapers, formula, and sleep schedules. That's so sweet. Yay. You love mommy, you love your mommy? Yep, we all loving me. It's okay. Go ahead and pop. But here's what the people closest to her will say without hesitation. Motherhood didn't dim who she was as a person. If anything, it made her shine even brighter. Amari had this playful energy, goofy personality, and she was loud in the best way possible. She had that gift where she could step into a quiet space, and suddenly everyone's laughing for no reason. A young woman who never stopped cracking jokes, smiling big, and spreading good energy to everyone in her circle. At only 19 years old, she was still discovering who she was meant to become in this world. But one thing she already perfected was being a dedicated present mother to Kai. That baby boy meant everything to her, was at the center of every decision she made, and became the reason she had to say no sometimes when friends wanted her to come out. And that's where things get complicated. Because young friendships and adult responsibilities don't always work together. Not everyone in her circle understood what her life had become. Not everyone wanted to accept that Amari couldn't always be available for every outing or every event. One person who struggled with that was 20-year-old Derekana Dunklin, Montgomery born and raised. Derekana finished high school in 2023, graduating the year before Amari did. By fall 2025, she had recently turned 20, had her birthday on September 18th, just 3 days before the stabbing took place. People who knew her said she loved being the center of attention, felt alive in social environments, and got a rush from the validation that comes with parties, trips, and being visible. Amari and Derekana didn't have no long history together. Truth is, according to folks who was close to them, their friendship only lasted about 2 months before everything blew up. But when they first connected, it happened quick. They bonded fast, started hanging out regularly, merged their friend groups. For a brief moment, it seemed like the kind of connection that could be long-term. But the same speed it started with is how fast it crumbled. It started with minor issues, the type that most friendships can recover from. Amari skipped Derekana's birthday party bus, and she declined to join the trip to Huntsville with everyone else. From Amari's perspective, these was simple choices. She had a son depending on her, obligations at home, and maybe she just didn't want to go. But from Derekana's perspective, those decisions came across as disrespectful, almost like personal slights. People who overheard their phone calls say arguments kept breaking out. Harsh words flew back and forth. Emotions got bruised, and what could have stayed small disagreements turned into deep resentment. The contrast between them became crystal clear. Even though Amari still enjoyed having fun, she was equally content being home, pouring love into her baby boy, living her truth as a young mother. Derekana, still caught up in that early 20s energy, craved being out in the world, being seen, being validated. It was a collision of two lifestyles, one rooted in happiness mixed with responsibility, the other driven by restless energy and needing attention. But still, nobody could have predicted that these minor differences, these ordinary conflicts, would escalate to violence. Look, friendships when you're 18 or 19 are already delicate. Life changes at lightning speed, and not every friendship survives those transitions. But should skipping a party bus or saying no to a weekend trip really result in a knife attack? Should feeling disappointed about attention and validation really lead to someone losing their life? These questions weighed heavy on everyone's hearts as time moved forward, because what looked like nothing but petty drama in real time would ultimately leave one young woman deceased, another one charged with murder, and an entire community trying to figure out how something so minor could become so catastrophic. During those early hours of September 21st, 2025, humid and heavy in Montgomery, Alabama, it was barely past 2 a.m. when a vehicle pulled up to the 3200 block of Raintree Drive. Sitting inside was 20-year-old Derekana Dunklin, who had just celebrated turning 20 on September 18th, only 3 days earlier. She had company in that car. Multiple people were present, and they were all aware something was about to unfold. Based on what the probable cause documents lay out, this wasn't some casual late-night visit between friends. Derekana was gripping a pocket knife, and according to witness accounts, she exited that vehicle with clear purpose, moving quickly like she had something to handle. What unfolded after that was complete mayhem. 19-year-old Amari Kapleton and another young woman became targets of an attack. Both victims sustained stab wounds, but sometimes the margin between survival and death is paper thin. The second victim survived her injuries. Amari would not survive hers. Initially, speculation ran wild through the community. Whispers spread suggesting that maybe both girls had agreed to meet up, that this was meant to be a mutual fight that spiraled out of control. But Amari's family shut that narrative down immediately. They refused to allow her name to be tarnished or her character to be misrepresented. Her cousin took to Facebook and made the truth known. After this, I'm not responding to anything else. Amari didn't meet up with anybody. She came somewhere that she had no business in the first place. You came to somebody's house with drama that could have been avoided from. The people in the car knew what the hell was going to happen. Regardless if it was to slash some tires or not, you still knew she had a knife in her hand. When she ran up on her, you could have dropped the knife out of your hand. You had the intent to do what the hell you did. Anybody that know Mari was not messy. Y'all not gonna keep trying to paint her as if she was picking a fight with that fucking girl. She was just friends with my cousin 2 months ago, and you only fell out with her because she didn't want to come to your party bus, and she didn't come to Huntsville with y'all. If I was with her, this would have been a whole different turnout. Regardless of the fact, nobody gonna keep going back and forth with none of y'all. It's not gone. Bring her back. Kai gets to grow up without a mom, and her mom got to deal with not seeing her only girl every day. Y'all took her from people that actually fucking love her, FIP you all, and whatever you all got to say. Those words from her cousin carried undeniable truth, raw and unfiltered. This wasn't two young women arranging to fight each other on equal ground. This was one person arriving at another person's location armed with a weapon, making an irreversible decision. Both Amari and the other victim got transported to the hospital, but even as medical staff worked frantically to save her life, the inevitable became apparent. In a matter of hours, Amari passed away. The community went into shock. Nobody could process what had just transpired. Two young women who had recently been calling each other friends, now permanently divided by an act of violence. A daughter taken from her mother, a mother taken from her son. Friends who just days prior had witnessed Amari being her joyful self, now confronted with the harsh reality that she was gone forever. City officials attempted to bring calm, repeating what they'd been emphasizing all weekend. These wasn't random murders, but conflicts between individuals who had existing relationships. But that explanation offered no real comfort, because regardless of the circumstances, it didn't erase the fact that a young life had been stolen in the most pointless way imaginable. On the internet, sorrow poured out constantly. Memorial services got organized, balloons floated skyward, social media platforms overflowed with remembrances, photographs and expressions of shock. People who had come up with Amari shared memories of her infectious smile, her silly sense of humor, her generous heart. They were determined not to let her be remembered solely as a murder victim. They needed her legacy to be about the happiness she created for others. But for her mother, the agony cut deeper than language could express, because 2025 had already brought tragedy to her family once before. Earlier that same year in January, she had buried the love of her life, Cedric, a well-known DJ whose passing had already shattered her emotionally. Now, without enough time to even begin healing from that loss, she faced another devastating blow, losing her only daughter. The same daughter who had made her a grandmother, who brought constant laughter into her home, who should have been there to bury her one day, not the other way around. Instead, she found herself arranging yet another funeral. Through her grief, she posted words on Facebook that captured everything she felt. Set, I know you got her. I know you was waiting on her with open arms. God, you got my attention. Whatever you need me to do, I'll do it. You ripped my heart out my chest. The weight of those words, the depth of that pain. One mother burying two people she loved in less than 12 months, and a little boy named Kai, now destined to grow up missing both the people who cherished him most, his mother here on earth, and his grandfather watching from above. The cruelty of it all felt unbearable, impossible to accept. Yet even as grief consumed her completely, the community rallied around her, bringing prayers, bringing food, bringing whatever support they could offer. They understood they couldn't remove her suffering, but they could ensure she didn't face it in isolation. At the same time, law enforcement moved with urgency. Before long, Derekana Dunklin found herself in custody, facing a murder charge. At just 20 years old, barely past her teenage years, now staring down accusations that could result in life imprisonment. The court documents told a damning story. This wasn't something she wandered into without awareness. She arrived prepared. She arrived filled with anger, and she executed the attack with multiple people bearing witness. Much an arrest has been made in connection with the deadly stabbing that happened over the weekend. Derekana Dunklin is accused of stabbing Amari Kapleton to death. The incident happened Sunday. According to court violence, Dunklin went to Kapleton's home and stabbed her multiple times. Multiple witnesses say it started over an argument. Another woman was also stabbed, but her injuries are not serious. It's one of 5 under investigation that happened over the weekend in Montgomery. 2 young lives completely destroyed, one buried in the ground, one trapped behind bars, and stuck in between all of it, a baby boy growing up motherless. Amari Kapleton's story represents more than just another violent crime in Montgomery. This is a story about potential that got wasted, about how delicate young friendships truly are, about how minor arguments and wounded pride can transform into irreversible tragedy. It serves as a reminder that our words carry weight, our choices have consequences, that uncontrolled anger is lethal, and that sometimes the people who once meant something to us can become the source of unimaginable pain.
Wow.
And as Montgomery residents lit candles and lifted up prayers, one question resonated louder than everything else. How does something so insignificant, so preventable, end up costing this much? What happened to Amari Kapleton demonstrates how unchecked ego and hurt feelings can become fatal when nobody intervenes to defuse the situation. She deserves to still be here, watching Kai grow up, laughing without limits, building the life she deserved. Instead, her family mourns endlessly. Her son faces a future without her, and her mother carries a burden no parent should ever know. Let what happened to her serve as a wake-up call. Stand by grieving families, guide the young people in your community, and never dismiss the warning signs when minor conflicts start spiraling out of control. And make sure notifications are turned on. We release new true crime content every day, bringing you cases both familiar and overlooked. Stay with us as we continue sharing stories that need to be told. Catch you in the next video.